Hi, Julie. Welcome to the Military Veteran Podcast. The Military Veteran Podcast covers and interviews fantastic military veterans working across many different industries: finance, startups, big tech, big companies. Julie, you have a very interesting background. Can you please share about your journey into the military and post-military and what you're doing, and then maybe stop to what you're working on now?
So I grew up on the East Coast outside of DC, and my mother's father was a P-38 pilot in World War II. He went to West Point, just like you. It was Army Air Corps. He was actually a POW during World War II and retired as a colonel in the Air Force. And my mom met my dad at a Navy ball. He did ROTC at Cornell University and was a service worker officer. And I grew up with a lot of my friends' parents have served or were serving. When I got to college, I decided to join ROTC. And so I did Navy ROTC at UVA. Really enjoyed my experience there. And during the course and the training, decided that I wanted to try to be a pilot. And ended up going to flight school during Desert Storm. The war was over while I was in school, so while I was still in flight school. So I was deployed to Cuba Point, Subic Bay in the Philippines, and did a lot of very exciting missions there. I got to fly the Navy SEALs around, did joint missions with the Marines. It was a very high adrenaline, exciting early career, looking back on it. But when they closed the base, I was stationed at HC1 in Coronado, and there I did torpedo recovery and other training missions. But they had realized they had too many pilots after Desert Storm, and I had the option to take an offer discharge, and decided to join a company that recruited me called SEI Investments. And full circle, I am now leading a company that has an ETF that invests in democracy, and our ETF sits on SEI's platform. So I'm kind of called full circle, back fighting for democracy.
There's a lot of questions I have there. So first is your grandfather, your mother's father. Did he fly on the Western Front, or did he fly in Asia?
No, he was a POW in Germany.
POW in Germany. Mm-hmm. Check. And then what did you fly?
I flew the Sea King, the SH-3. It's a very large helicopter with a round nose.
Excuse my Navy ignorance. In the Army, you have a Chinook. Is it similar to the Chinook?
No.
Okay. Much larger?
Slightly smaller. And it can land in the water.
Oh, it can land in the water.
Yeah.
Interesting. Hence, bringing around SEALs. Where was your Navy training then?
So all Navy pilots start at Pensacola in the fixed wing program. And then when you finish the fixed wing, the T-34 at the time, it's updated now, then you spin in the track of either jets, props, or helicopters. And so that training was at Whiting Field, just north of Pensacola. And that's where the helicopters get their training. So I was in Florida the whole time.
Oh, wow. Pensacola, I'm from Tallahassee. Warm, hot, humid. What's your take on Pensacola? I think it's pretty nice.
Oh, I loved it. It was great. And in fact, when I was at Whiting Field, we had a rental house on a little lagoon where I could go out and windsurf.
Wow.
So I had a windsurfer, and that was what I would do when I needed to take a break from studying.
It feels like you spent a lot of time in Pensacola, just given there's the initial training and then the rotary, I guess, is that called rotary wing training?
Yep.
So is that like a year long or 2 years long?
It was, I think combined, it was over a year. I would say a year to 3 months, because there was a time where we were all down while they decided what to do, and they cut a huge portion, and a bunch of students got subbed to the fleet. So in the beginning, we were going crazy fast because they thought there weren't going to be enough pilots for Desert Storm, and we were flying more than any class I know of, like 6 days a week. And then it stopped. Like, oh, okay, too many in the pipeline. What do we do? Who gets to stay? Who has to go? And so I want to say that was like a month and a half of just waiting.
And were you able to pick rotary wing, or how did that go? Okay, so you picked that, and then your first station was in Subic Bay.
Correct.
Oh wow.
But first I went to train in Coronado at HC1 is what I went back to. So I did, I want to say six months of training at HC1 before they deployed.
And how much cumulative time did you spend in Navy? And I ask that because at West Point, the pilots owe more time than the non-pilots.
And I did owe more time, but there was this 6-month window where they had too many pilots, so they were actually paying senior pilots to leave, to go to the airlines. I wasn't senior enough for that, but they were, it was welcome to say pilots to step away gracefully. There were too many.
And so was this 5 years, 4 years?
A little over 4 years.
A little over 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I did 2 years in the reserves.
Your first job was at SEI Investments.
First civilian job, correct.
First civilian job.
Mm-hmm.
Did you go to grad school or no?
After that.
After that. So, and then where was SEI Investments? What was that job headquartered at?
It was in Thousand Oaks, Pennsylvania. And then when I actually worked directly for the CEO, and at the end of that project, there were 6 of us. He said, everyone on this team can pick any job in any city. And I had traveled around to all the offices as part of that job and fell in love with San Francisco. So I chose San Francisco, mutual fund sales and marketing. And I've been in the Bay Area ever since, except for 2 years at grad school at UCLA.
I want to double click on that because there's a lot of military veterans who listen to our podcast, and they're usually at a transition of transitioning out of the military. For myself and many other veterans that we've had on this podcast, it was a difficult process. Some of them, though, it was like, no, it was really easy. I don't know what you want to it being. What was it like for you?
I'm curious, what's the ratio if it was easy versus it was hard?
It's more like probably 80-20, 80% hard, 20% easy. That's generally the ratio, but I'm curious, what was your experience?
Well, I got really lucky because when I decided to explore, there was a company recruiting junior military officers, and I went to a big speed dating type of event in Texas, and I went from interview to interview and got to talk to all different industries. And that helped me out. Wow. And I knew I still wanted to be mission driven, and I was drawn to finance because money makes the world go around, affecting economies. So the mission of finance spoke to me, and I really liked the person I would be working for, who was there, and I was in their first class of junior military officers because they had the theory that we would be cheaper and harder working than MBAs.
It's true.
Yeah. So I had a pretty easy time finding the first job because of that program. But then, like everybody else, I was like, whoa, no uniform, new language, new learning to use a computer, all of that at the time was definitely challenging. And I think I really missed the camaraderie. We kind of take for granted when we're serving.
This sounds like this was, I'm doing my math, but maybe 96?
Oh, it was early.
It was
early.
early.
We can go with that.
Okay, cool. And then SEI Investments, how large was that company? Was it was it a really big company?
It was kind of small to middle, but it has grown to be a huge company.
And how many people were there when you joined, roughly, would you say?
Maybe 3,000.
Oh, that's a big company. I mean, for our startup people, 3,000 is a big company. And you work directly, sound like the CEO?
That's not, I worked directly for the head of the Information Technology Center to start on a big transformation project. And when the CEO saw how well it went, he said, oh, we should do this company-wide. You're going to come work for me and 5 other people, and you're going to do what we did there across the company.
And then after that company transformation, you came out to San Francisco, it sounds like.
Yep. Doing
mutual fund sales and marketing. That sounds like a lot of sales and a little bit of marketing.
Yeah. I was also doing some operations. I was sort of like the get it done person, which suited me well. And I got to travel to Salt Lake City for a client, and I got into skiing there.
And so what were you selling? Were you selling stocks, individual stocks? Were you selling mutual funds?
So our big client was converting private label mutual funds to private label trust funds to public mutual funds. So it was and the marketing part was winning the account. So we had a lot of work going into the big presentation and where they decide whether or not they go with us. And then once we secured them, then we created the whole marketing strategy for the mutual funds.
Interesting. And what were these mutual funds? What were the different asset classes? Were they like S&P 500, Russell 2000, or was it like real estate and tech?
No, it was super simple. I don't remember the exact stuff, but they were very simple.
And then after SEI, how long did you stay at SEI Investments for?
2.5 years.
Cool.
Yeah, but it felt like a lot longer. I got to do a lot of fun work there.
Sounds like it.
Yeah.
And then did you go to, was that UCLA next? Or?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then UCLA. And a lot of veterans we have on the podcast heavily like MBA, actually go from military to MBA, then to the private sector. I think it really benefits those to have some work experience before you get an MBA.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard to go. And because you don't have a frame of reference that's out there. So I would suggest, even if it's a 6-month internship, do what you can to get some civilian experience before you go to grad school, or you'll be in the classroom a lot.
100%. Like when I sat in accounting and financial classes, I was like, this feels like calculus to me, and I'm not sure if I'm ever going to use it. And lo and behold, you always use it. And so having some civilian experience grounds all that learning. It's so critical.
Agreed.
Did you have a good time at UCLA?
Oh, I had a ball. It was 2 of the best years of my life. Super fun.
So when a lot of veterans leave the military and go and get an MBA, they're tabula rasa, no idea what they want to do next. Did you, going into UCLA, have a good idea what you wanted to do afterwards?
I did. I wanted to go into consulting, management consulting.
And is that what happened?
Yep.
And so, how was that? How was that experience?
It was great. Actually, did my summer internship with PricewaterhouseCoopers. Did an organization strategy project for a large bank. And then during my second year, I interviewed with all the big ones, and I was ended up getting an offer from, it was Anderson Consulting at the time, their strategy practice. So that's now Accenture's strategy practice. And really enjoyed the work. Yeah, I realized I love building strategies, and I like having a seat at the table of where the decisions are being made, and to be with the C-suite, deciding which way to steer the ship, and what's the long-term strategy. That's just, I found it very exciting, and I'm very glad that I got out of the military when I did, because I realized I wasn't up to what we call fly a desk. Being a large bureaucracy, I wanted to be in a faster-moving bureaucracy where I could have more impact.
What you said there was really interesting. I want to double click on that. And that is comparing aspects of the civilian workforce and the military. I'm curious, what aspects of the military helped you in the civilian world?
Well, it takes a lot to rattle my cage. It's like I'm pretty calm under pressure, so that's helpful. I think learning, I always was, pretty much the whole time I was serving, I was in the operations department. So when I wasn't flying, I was writing the flight schedule, and I learned early on the importance of talking to the maintenance and who are the people actually are going to allow us to execute our plan here, because I'm not going to write a schedule that can't be executed. So that early experience helped me in a corporate world where I realized, here we all sitting around this fancy boardroom, but does anyone here really know how this is going to get done? So that experience was helpful in building realistic strategies that can actually be executed. And of course, as you execute the strategy, you have to make adjustments along the way. And that's another thing I learned early, is things don't always go according to plan, and you got to be flexible and do what it takes to get the mission done.
The other thing that I quickly want to go back to is the MBA program. What do you think what do you think veterans get out of the MBA program? Or what should they look for? I think a lot of veterans get it because for the optionality, they don't know what to do next. I think a lot of it do it because they want like a little bit of a safety net. And then I also think a lot of people do it, and maybe these are all related, is that it's a socially accepted way to spend 2 years to figure out what you want to do next. But I'm curious, how would you frame an MBA for veterans?
Well, going back to what we just agreed on, so much better to come into that with some civilian experience. I would pick a program that fits with your personality, really dig deep on what is the culture of that program and where most of the students going. So I'm really lucky that I was attracted to Ansett because it was mostly entrepreneurs, and it was less of that cutthroat investment banking type folks there. Those folks were more at Harvard, Stanford, et cetera. And there was great camaraderie. It was very much a holistic team. Most of the classes were team-based grades. And so I think the most valuable thing, one of the most valuable things is building a network, making new friends, and folks you can call up, 20 years later and say, hey, need advice on this. It's probably the number one benefit. So knowing that you're going to get this fantastic new network, where do you want that network to be? So I've started thinking about getting my MBA my first year at SEI when I was on the East Coast, and I applied to all East Coast schools. And then I realized, wait, it's cold. I'm a runner, and I like the culture better on the West Coast. So I got myself to San Francisco through work, and then I reapplied to all West Coast schools, and I'm really glad I did that. It took an extra year to find my spot, because if I just, oh no, I got to do it now, I would probably still be on the East Coast, and my network would be all East Coast, and I wouldn't be able to do the other things that I enjoy year round, which I'm probably about California a lot of.
Smart. I think so many veterans rush to the next thing. I think taking a little bit of time to calibrate provides optimization of choices. A lot of veterans do the MBA, then go into the traditional paths of finance, consulting. I'm curious, what drew you to consulting?
Like I said before, the idea of building strategies for big companies, and again, having impact and mission driven. And I liked the variety. I liked that essentially, like, I didn't have to pick one industry, so I could learn about different industries. And generally, it was all about transformation. I joined my first project at SEI. I did a little bit of transformation work in India as well, but it wasn't as fast moving and exciting. It was more slow to turn the ship.
And then how long were you at Accenture / consulting before you moved on to your next role?
I was there 2 years, and then I had been traveling, quite a bit. I had a client in Canada, and I realized I wanted to start a family, and I didn't see how that travel schedule, how I could be a good parent with that travel schedule. So I took the best job I could close to my home, which was San Rafael at the time, and that was working at Autodesk. And I was actually recruited by the COO and had a fantastic few years there. And then I ended up in their corporate venture capital group a while, working with all the portfolio companies that Autodesk invests.
Fascinating. A few things around that. One is I see a lot of consultants end up at one of their clients oftentimes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, do you think that's a regular thing or not?
Well, it's hard for me not to. I look at the new schedule. Since COVID, everyone's changed. The clients changed, the consulting companies changed. It is not it's not like it used to be. And I'm so glad, especially for the young families out there that want to have those kind of jobs, because it's no longer 100% expectation that you fly out Sunday and come back late Friday. I couldn't even put my dry cleaning. And I see people do, and we're so effective on Zoom. You don't have to be in the room for everything now. People learn how to juggle that. So I would say, if that's your, don't let that hold you back. And, it is high pressure though. Eventually you're in a sales role, and it's not for everyone. But I have a dear friend who just retired as a partner for me in Y. She loved every minute of it. So we'll make it work.
and then Autodesk. Autodesk is builds CAD software,
Right.
And CAD is used computer aided design, I believe, and it is software that pretty much every single serious engineer that's doing like 3D work uses. Is that right?
Yeah, in all different industries. That sums it up.
And it's a company that's been in the Bay Area for a very long time.
Yes, and now they're at one market. They were headquarters used to be San Rafael, and then moved to the city.
It's like 7 blocks away, maybe.
Yeah.
How was it working at Autodesk?
Oh, it was amazing. Yeah, I had a really good boss, the one who recruited me, and I did 2 merger integrations for her. And one of them was in Canada. She said, "I know you don't want to travel, but just one project, and then you can be local." I was like, "Okay, one more project." So I did. They bought a company called Discrete, and I managed the merger integration for that. And then I switched to the corporate venture capital group, and like I said, worked with portfolio companies, and I was still kind of an internal consultant. So I really enjoyed it, but I started to get a little bored and looked around. I talked to one of my friends I worked with at Accenture, and she had just finished doing a strategy project for Wells Fargo's private bank, and she knew what I'd done at Accenture and at Autodesk, and said, "Hey, we just built this high level strategy, but now it actually needs to get done. It needs to get brought to life. Is that something you might be interested in?" And I said, "Yeah, that sounds great. I think I might want to go back to finance, because as much as I like Autodesk, I'm not an engineer, and I could see a glass ceiling for folks that are not engineers at a software company, and I didn't want to become overhead there." So going back to finance sounded great, and so she recommended me, and I made that switch. This was before Wells Fargo merged with Wachovia, so this was quite a while ago.
Pre 2009.
Right.
And so at Wells Fargo, it sounded like you worked on some implementation of some new.
Well, it was still strategy development. So here's pie in the sky, what we want to get to someday, but no idea what that actually looks and feels, what you can use for clients. What's the client experience? How do we get it done? So it was kind of like another integration and transformation, and at the same time, the sales team, they were kind of all working separately, and so a client could have like 5 different people working on their needs, whereas if you hold it together, a whole team, and there's one team that made with one relationship manager, the whole thing goes much more smoothly for everybody. So I was also part of that, in addition to building out their new brand strategy.
It feels like your background at SEI, the finance, and your consulting background probably played a big role in your hiring and your success there. Would you say that's the case?
Yeah, I would say, yeah. And realizing that it's okay to get up and move, even if you like where you are. But I didn't want to be, I was looking ahead. I don't want to be bored someday. And this seems like a good move, like more of a fit for where I belong.
And then after Wells Fargo, what came next?
I decided to resign to stay home with my little girls for a while, because they were just growing up so fast. And my youngest was 6 months, and I realized these are precious years. Why don't I just take 3-4 years until she's ready for school, and then I'll come back. And I had no regrets doing that. And it was amazing. Not that they remembered it, but I think it was good for the whole family. And I would also recommend, if you are in a place to do that, to take some time with your family, because work will always be there. And,
work is a gas. It will fill any room and expand. I'm glad you shared that. This is actually something that we probably don't talk about too much on this podcast, and that is balancing family in a serious way. I think the thing that we talk about work so often on this podcast, but probably the hardest work is raising young kids. By far the hardest work. Right? Like, it's not quantified on GDP. No one's getting paid for that usually. And so, that's, and so was it both of the kids you were raising at the same time? Wow.
Yeah. Well, so I had a nanny when I was working at Wells Fargo. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, the nanny would have to come with me when I'd go on trips. So she'd be in the hotel with my little baby while I'm working and coming back. I was like, this is kind of crazy. And so, yeah, it is a hard job. And it's also precious moments. You don't want to miss them. And I'm kind of a workaholic. So I knew like I couldn't just, work less. Like for me, it's all or nothing. So like, you know what, I just have to not work, enjoy these precious years. I'm going to coach. I coached my older one soccer team and, got them on we were living in Reno at the time. Got them in the their school to have a little ski camp on Friday. So I'd ski with the moms and then be there when they got out of ski camp to, so it was really precious times. And to be able to plan vacations, plan trips, half the time to work before, it was really hard to do that. So, yeah, again, I'm not sure how much they remember, but I did stay home until, my youngest was ready for preschool, full-time preschool. So she was 4 years old, 4 and a half. And as I was coming back to the job market, that was 2009 when the market started. So one of the partners that I worked for at Accenture hired me to a boutique consulting firm. It's based in Boston, but we were going to run the West Coast office. And sadly, we couldn't close any business because the market started tanking. So I ended up, but that was still a great experience, and glad to be again working with people I enjoy and the kind of work I enjoy. But then I was relieved because that would have been a lot of travel with young kids. I was recruited by one of my colleagues from SEI to Schwab Advisor Services. So Charles Schwab. And I was trying to get back into Wells Fargo, but they were going through the merger with Wachovia and there were no openings. So I went to my network and found this opportunity at Charles Schwab and had a nice 3 years there working with all the RIAs who custody at Charles Schwab. I built out their transition planning capabilities to help RIAs with their when they want to do M&A to grow or to retire. So again, going back to my Autodesk experience, my consulting experience, I was an in-house business consultant for the RIAs who custody Schwab.
The Schwab, massive business, also like Autodesk, a Bay Area institution practically. They even have like a conference right now. I think it's called Impact.
That's why I'm in town. That's why I suggested this day.
Fascinating. Massive conference.
Yeah.
And specifically for RIAs.
Yep.
And so I think this is going to get us very close to what you're working on now, Democracy Now.
Yes.
But maybe double click. It feels like the network, whether it was military or UCLA Anderson,
or SEI,
has been tremendously helpful.
Yes, networking is important. I would say that's one thing we should never take for granted. And that with everyone you met, starting in high school or whatever, even sooner. I one of my best friends in 7th grade, I call her for advice all the time.
I think networking is going to be even more important as we become even more virtual.
Mm-hmm.
Like with AI, with AI being able to do so many more things, the human element becomes even more important.
I would agree.
And after Schwab, what did you work on?
Then I was recruited back to Wells Fargo and worked in various lines of business. Again, kind of an internal strategy role, building out new product strategies and marketing strategies, that sort of thing.
So by the time you went back to Wells Fargo, did you think that like finance is like what I want to focus on?
Yes.
Cool. And so after Wells, can you talk what was next?
Well, I started to get a little restless, wanting to have more impact. And I actually did some advising on the side to some boutique firms, a couple of startups. And then I went to my network, and actually one of my colleagues from Autodesk, he went into finance the same time I did. He went to Franklin Templeton to become a portfolio manager. And I would bug him every year or so and say, this rise of impact investing, there's got to be something we can do. And we couldn't come up with the idea. And then I met our third partner, Rick, through one of the advisory roles I was doing. And he's actually here with a company in Oakland. And so the three of us are brainstorming, and he happened to be, he got his PhD from MIT, and he happened to be modeling coronavirus death rates with the Economist Magazine Democracy Index. Is there a correlation to COVID deaths and democracy score of a country? And it turns out there was no correlation. But the index was on his desk while we were brainstorming and about how could we stop the trillions of dollars that are flowing into these international index funds. And trillions of dollars, not just to, actually, sorry, we were just stop the trillions of dollars that are funded, that are going to authoritarians. How could we stop all of that? And this was around the time when the Thrift Savings Plan was thinking about shifting to MSCI, and the White House stopped them. So MSCI has developed markets, emerging markets, all kinds of international index products that are, in our minds, over-allocated to authoritarians. So that's a great idea. It could be we could create an alternative, and it could be attractive for saving plans for anyone who wants to avoid geopolitical risk and stop passively funding the growth of authoritarians. So I called the Economist magazine, and we were able to negotiate an exclusive license to use their data for financial products globally. And when we secured that license, we formed the company.
So many questions there. First is the TSB, I want to say, is managed by BlackRock. Is that right?
I think they have BlackRock products in it.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Are they though? I don't know.
Okay, I think they are. I think like there's like the G fund, the I fund, the S fund, the C fund, like all those different like things are managed by BlackRock, and BlackRok is like a very small, very like incredibly small basis point for like managing it.
Yeah. Well, BlackRock uses MSCI, so their products that we compete with are tracking the market cap weighted MSCI index.
Interesting. And then share more about MSCI. MSCI sounds like
so there's MSCI, there's FTSE, there are index providers that just create these indices, and then people create products that track those indices. For these market cap weighted indices, the only thing they're looking at is how big is the company, what's their market cap, and that's how they just. I mean, that's not everything, but that's mostly what they look at when they compile the index. So for our strategy, we start with those same basket of stocks that are market cap weighted, 2,900, large and mid cap, mostly developed markets. And then we apply the country democracy score. So TSMC is our number one holding. We multiply by the Taiwan democracy score. Taiwan does very well in our strategy. And then we do that for all 2,900 securities, normalize it to be 100, and that results in very neutral and systematic tilts in securities that are based in democracies towards democracy, and we underweight authoritarians. So we downweight China, for example, by 72%. We're overweighting Norway, Canada, New Zealand, Taiwan, Japan, Switzerland, usual suspects.
Interesting. And people, how can people access this financial product?
Through any brokerage platform. We're listed on Schwab, Fidelity, Robinhood, and the ticker symbol is DMCY. It's the Democracy International Fund. It's an ETF.
And how long has this ETF been in existence?
Over 3.5 years. And going back to BlackRock, I encourage people to do their own research, but the index that our product tracks has outperformed the MSCI index quite significantly.
So if you want to support democratic countries and companies in democratic countries, this is the ETF that you want to be in.
I would hope so. I would, because this is a veteran audience, I will say, in my mind, this is a form of economic warfare. Let's stop fueling the growth of authoritarians. Let's vote with our dollars. And if this fund gets to be as big as a Vanguard fund, we will start to see countries realizing, oh, I should really improve my country democracy score to get more capital.
And then do you all list or include, how many companies are in this ETF?
The index has 2,900 securities.
Oh, wow. So there's exposure to 2,900 companies. through the index.
Correct. Through the index, 2,900 companies.
It sounds like you overweight certain companies based off the
Based on their country democracy score.
Yes.
We're not picking stocks.
Yeah.
We are picking democracy. We're neutrally and systematically tilting towards democracy with the long-term goal of incentivizing all countries to want to improve their democracy score to get more capital. And country democracy scores have been going down every year, quite a bit. We're seeing a backslide, especially this year, and this year of record global elections. So here's a way to do something to someday in the future reverse these trends. Plus, with all the geopolitical risk, the shifting supply chains, why would you want to be overweighted in authoritarians? Democracies have better rule of law, more stability, less short-term crises. It's a way to get international exposure. We're seeing trade tensions on the horizon. We downweight China, and we're ex-US. We have no US. So this is it's pure international.
And so pure international, are these stocks traded on NYSE and NASDAQ, or are they, are they traded on other exchanges?
Yes, but through ADRs, we're not dealing with foreign stock markets.
Got it. How's it going?
Well, the really good news is our track record. When we set out to do this, again, this was during COVID, before the war in Ukraine. We thought, let's offer an alternative. Maybe the performance will be a little better, but you can feel good knowing you're not funding the growth of authoritarians. Well, 3.5 years later, we have significantly outperformed. It's crazy for an index fund. The hard part has been getting assets into the fund and getting the word out.
I'm guessing the hard part has also been to have Schwab carry it or Robinhood carry it.
No, we're listed on the New York Stock Exchange.
Oh, good.
No, day one we were listed, yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's probably our feet though. It doesn't seem, yeah.
Again, my experience at SEI, they are our fund administrator, they manage our fund compliance, and they knew from my background that I would be able to run this. They have, I think they've said no to other potential issuers who didn't have the background to understand compliance, understand all the regulations, understand all the back-end operations, et cetera.
Do you all think you all will be building more ETFs?
Oh, absolutely, because we can use the Economist Democracy Index for so many other products. First, we need to get this product to scale. So I'm really grateful to you to letting me get the word out on this podcast, because I would hope that veterans would find this very appealing for their let's support democracy and get our international exposure.
And this ETF sounds like every ETF, you can put your Roth IRA in it, you can put your 529 in it, you can put your retirement in it.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yep. And I would suggest look at what your international holdings are. You might be in a fund that is supposedly an impact international fund, and you could have 10 cent Alibaba in your top 10 holdings.
This is really interesting. I think what does scale mean for an ETF? Is it I'm a private investor. I don't understand scale at public markets. When someone says 5 trillion, 5 billion, 500 million, it's all it's just a big public market. But what does public market ETF success look like?
You get respect once you are probably at 50 million. Once you get to 50 million, you're on all the platforms, and assuming the strategy is performing well, and it hasn't been seeded, everyone recognizes, okay, this makes sense. This is going to be around, and then they can obviously stay.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. Because I know that every now and then when I read CNBC or Washington Journal, it's this company just got added to the Dow 30 or S&P 500, and that company automatically just gets 5% bump just because they're now part of that collection of companies. It sounds like that's also the case for ETFs.
Sure, yeah. So as more advisors put DMCY in their models, we'll start to have more traction. And we've had some people just have Googled, how can I invest in democracy, and have found us. And it's, sometimes people are like, my client wants this. Where is it? Well, we exist. I'd like to figure out how to get the word out to more veterans. Beyond this podcast, if you have any ideas.
Is there a website for this ETF?
Yes, democracyinvestments.com.
Democracyinvestments.com.
Yeah.
And
or you can go to your brokerage platform, put in the ticker DMCY. Please read the prospectus, and again compare us to those other pure market cap weighted strategies out there. See, we've done quite well.
For again, I'm an ignorant trader. I don't understand stock market that well, but I would imagine that a lot of endowments and institutions they have so much. They're heavily overweighted public markets. It feel like if just a few of them also added democracy,
yes.
That it would be like it really flipped the switch. Is that the case?
Yes, that's the goal. That's the goal. A lot of them have consultants, and consultants don't want a young fund, a small fund in the portfolio. So once we start to scale, then we can start to go after those as well.
I think this is financial innovation. I think it's something that not many veterans would think about or know that you could do such a thing. This feels very entrepreneurial.
It is, yes.
And because it's so entrepreneurial, it also feels very stressful. Would you say that's the case or not?
But it's stressing in a good way because I'm behind an impact strategy. So this has been my dream, and I don't mind this kind of stress when it's for a good cause, and I really enjoy the people I work with, the advisors who are fans. I very rarely have anyone say, "Oh, that's a terrible idea." Like I don't think anyone's ever said that to me. We've got a pretty unique offering here, and I had one advisor say, "Wow, I have clients on either side of the aisle, but they can agree on this international abroad. We should obviously believe that." So I'm hoping it could be a unifying theme right now, given what's going on in the country.
The asset also is so interesting that it should also appeal to all democratic people, all democratic countries.
Exactly.
So if I'm in Taiwan or if I'm in Norway,
yes.
Or if I'm in a country that I wish was more democratic, this is an ETF I can buy.
Exactly. We were actually invited to present at the Copenhagen Democracy Summit this summer. That was an amazing experience. And talk about high stress. So I will confide that part of my difficult transition is I am not comfortable with public speaking. And as a pilot, I would get up and say, "Here's the weather, here's the mission, here's all the logistics in a very monotone, quick, keep it short and to the point." And to go from that style to storytelling and being comfortable in front of a large audience, and the Copenhagen Democracy Summit was like a TED Talk style. And I was like, this is going to be literally the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, except for some of my flying missions. And I had to really practice over and over in my head. And thank goodness it went okay. And the video's on our website. I did it with my chief economist, we're tag teaming on another short interview there. And the other presenter, Richard Branson, was right after us talking. And other heads of state, the presidents of Taiwan were there. Matt Pottinger was involved. Actually, this is a shout out for veterans interested in. This is an organization that truly is fighting for democracy internationally. That's the Alliance of Democracies, and it is run by the former NATO, and he ran NATO, and he was the PM for Denmark. And he brings together kind of the who's of people, of activists and supporters lobbying for democracy. And they have a summit every year in Copenhagen in May. It's absolutely fantastic.
Interesting. There's two things you said that I want to double click on that I think are really fascinating. First is we connected at an investor conference, and at that investor conference, it's heavily about one's ability to do sales.
Yes.
And you had mentioned just now that you have through this entrepreneurial endeavor of the ETF DMCY, you learned to become more comfortable selling.
Yes.
This is a very frequent theme on our podcast, that veterans underweight how important it is to sell. Would you agree or not?
Oh yes, we didn't have to sell. We were tacticians. I mean, I kind of felt like I got to do strategy because I was running a flight schedule and like planning missions. But no, well, there's probably there's some selling because you have to. It's just a different word. It's creating your brand of respect. I would say you want to be respected, so you get to go do the cool missions. So you're not trying to get someone to buy a product or but you are, you are having strategic interactions to, ensure future success. So that's basically the same thing as selling. It's just, different kind of goal.
I, at a very high level, structure my day with like create, react, networking. That is like get stuff done, then react to emails, and then evening is like networking when I can.
Mm-hmm.
Again, balancing family.
Right.
And I say this because you're at a current conference. We connected at a conference. So much of our jobs is networking, is finding opportunities.
Right.
I don't think enough veterans realize how important it is to put yourself out there.
I would agree.
Like, you have to go find opportunities. Very rarely will opportunities find you.
I would agree. And networking at veteran events will help check that box. If you're like me, missing the camaraderie, other veterans are going through the same thing. So, I actually led the veteran team member network at Wells Fargo for a while, and that I found that networking. So I got to be around veterans and learn about other parts of the company in an authentic way.
Awesome. And helping veterans, right? A broader theme I want to get back to is democracy and DMCY.
Okay.
I love history. Majored in military history and engineering at West Point. Started Context Ventures, and context is like a note, acknowledgement of history. Because I believe if you understand history, you can understand better the present. You can kind of better understand where we might go in the future. I believe we're in a very ahistorical moment, meaning we don't realize the impact of what history has taken to us now. Essentially, I believe so much the lessons of World War II and post-World War II have been completely forgotten. Mm-hmm. I'm curious what you think about that. Mm. Very hot take, sorry. And to double click on it, the reason I say that is because I think the reason why democracy is not seen as important as it was is because of what your grandfather did in World War II and what they did to rebuild democracy around the world. Mm-hmm. And we've taken it for granted so massively.
I completely agree. And my grandfather got to be the attaché in Turkey, and my mom has amazing memories of being a little girl there. And I've always been drawn to that time, and I have a lot of friends that remember those years of rebuilding democracy. And I think we, not just the U.S., but people become complacent about it around the world. And I'm just grateful to be partnered with one of the few voices of truth about what's really going on, and that's The Economist, because they have an incredibly robust way of measuring democracy. And so they've been pointing out when things are backsliding, what's happening, what's country, and then they're quantifying it with that country score, 60 different indicators, which are on our website. And they roll up to things such as electoral process, or are there free and fair elections? Is there a strong functioning government? Or is everybody voting? Is there a strong political process, pluralism? And are we protecting civil liberties? So I take comfort in that, and that we are all in with The Economist, and really honored for that partnership. And I agree, we're in a very unusual time. And when I look around, I was in New York not too long ago talking about this record year of global elections. Half the world's population has gone to vote this year in almost 70 countries. And we're starting to see themes. The U.S. is not alone in, the common themes across the world with concern for the economy, concerns for immigration, concerns for what's next. So yes, I agree. But what can we do? Well, let's do something. That's actually why we were invited to the Copenhagen Democracy Summit, because they were all kinds of presenters, but this is a strategy that's actually trying to do something, not just talking about it.
I believe in cycles. I believe we're obviously in a political cycle, we're in an economic cycle. The challenge and the opportunity for what I think you're building is that both economic and political cycle will, just like it's moved to anti-democratic, will eventually swing back. And when it swings back, I think it's going to be very favorable for what you build and for the larger democracy.
And I think the younger generations are, as they gain power, they're not going to put up with this.
And they care more about these issues. Julie, your background and your journey has been incredible. Navy, ROTC at UVA, helicopter pilot, finance at SEI, then MBA program, then consulting, then back to finance, then back to consulting, then software company Autodesk, then Wells Fargo.
Are you saying I'm old?
No, I'm saying that you can rebuild your career multiple times.
Yes.
And you can create your own career. But to do that, you need to leverage your network, build a network, and take some risk. And it seems like you've done all that.
Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
In order to get reward in life, you have to take risk. I wish you and Democracy and DMCY rewards, and I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you so much, Tim. It's been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you, Julie. Good luck.
Thanks.